It's usually pretty easy to work out in which category a car competes in. I mean, a Ferrari is patently a sports car, a Golf is very much a family hatchback, and a Land Rover is definitely a 4x4. But everything is not what it seems. Take this vehicle for instance. Yes, it is a 4x4, absolutely, it's an SUV, and of course it is a Land Rover. But it's also fast enough to be a sports car and luxurious and spacious enough to be a limousine. It's also expensive enough to be an exotic. So, what do we have here? Meet the Range Rover Sport Supercharged. If you're a regular RPM viewer, you'll have seen an example of this car on the show before, when Spike drove it at the world launch in Scotland. But it's the first time I've been able to sample the beast, and believe you me, a beast it is. In fact, this is very much a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of car. There's nothing pretty or petite about this car. It's big and angular and in your face, and that's pretty much the character of the car. From the front, the blunt pugnaciousness is very much that of a prize fighter, whereas the blacked-out windows and those big wheels add an air of menace. But it's also instantly recognizable as a Range Rover Sport. Although this is the latest 2010 model, the exterior hasn't changed much. The silhouette remains boxy and angular, suggesting less than ideal aerodynamics, and the raised ride height serves as a reminder of the vehicle's all-terrain talents. However, there have been some changes to the aesthetics, including bolder LED headlights, a more imposing, more contemporary grille, and smoother contours for the fenders and bumpers. The taillights are also new. The cabin features further improvements. If you spend some time in a previous generation Range Rover Sport, you'll notice a lot of changes. The seats have been resculpted, the fascia is a lot less cluttered, and the finishes are more upmarket than before. But one thing that hasn't changed is the fact that despite the bulk of this car, the front feels just a little bit cramped. The footwell is narrow, the seats seem shoehorned into the available space, and you sit quite upright, making a perfect driving position difficult to dial in. Some of the switchgear is obscured by the steering wheel too. But the upside is a list of standard kit that will make even the most committed hedonist's eyes water. From sat-nav to keyless entry and operation, from the touchscreen central display to multiple exterior cameras, from the superior sound system to the highly effective iPod connection, the Range Rover Sport leaves its passengers wanting for nothing. As one would expect, fit and finish is of a very high standard, with a tangible sense of quality that's underscored by the use of premium materials. The dark hues can make the interior feel smaller than it is, but suit the character of the Sport, while the sense of cosseting luxury is all-pervading. Indeed, it's an interior that makes even a short drive feel like a special occasion and makes longer distances seem to shrink. One of the reasons is the superb drivetrain. If, like me, you're a petrol head, then all those bells and whistles will be far less important than what's under the bonnet. This lump of aluminium is what makes the vehicle tick, and it packs a pretty mean punch. Get this, 5 litres, V8, 32 valves, and a supercharger. The result? Thrust like that of a Boeing. The new engine delivers 375 kilowatts and 625 newton meters, which explains why even a 2.5-ton curb weight can't prevent the Sport from taking off like a cruise missile when you mash the throttle to the floor. But the V8 is also much more efficient than the previous unit, with fuel consumption savings of around 6% and CO2 emissions down by 7%. Having said that, the Range Rover Sport Supercharged is not an eco-warrior by any stretch of the imagination. It's a street fighter, plain and simple, and a very effective one at that. Get off the line cleanly enough and you'll do a 0-100 time in the low 6-second bracket, top speed 225 kilometers an hour, by which time these big gumball tires will be working very hard indeed. But such conduct will come back to bite you at the fuel pump. Land Rover reckons that combined cycle fuel consumption should be in the 14.9 litres per 100 kilometre league, but our test figure was hovering closer to the 18 litre per 100 mark, even with some circumspect long-distance driving. Average emissions come to 348 grams per kilometre, but those with a green conscience should be driving something smaller and more frugal. Okay, so this vehicle offers startling performance and it has a sumptuous, luxurious interior, but it is a Range Rover after all, and that means that the expectation here is of a 4x4 with real off-road talent. The question is, does this latest version still manage that task properly? Landy fans won't be at all surprised about the sport's all-terrain talents despite the big wheels and low-profile tyres. The folk at Solihull pride themselves on making real 4x4s, and the Range Rover Sport is no exception. It gets a better terrain response system with improved performance in sand and still features true 4x4 traction and excellent wheel travel. However, most owners will stick to blacktop roads and revel in the sport's muscle. The adaptive suspension and all-wheel drive provide exceptional grip and crisp responses. There's even a dynamic setting for optimizing on-road behavior. The Range Rover Supercharged is both the Dr. Jekyll and the Mr. Hyde of the Land Rover range. It's still a prodigious off-roader, but it has the dynamics of a tar-burning sports car. Add the luxury and the space of a limousine and you've got what must be the ultimate all-rounder. In fact, I can't think of another vehicle with such a breadth of capability at any price. A brand new engine delivers more power and torque, yet guzzles less fuel. Performance is sparkling on and off the road, while comfort levels are to the usual high Range Rover standard. The result is one of the automotive world's great all-rounders, with sports car style performance linked to true all-terrain talent, but it remains thirsty and expensive to run.